Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing our April wrap-up. These are all of the books, fan fictions I decided to include that I read in April. You want to know what's so funny? So, I don't know if you remember, if you've watched these videos, but in January, February, and March, I read 24 books. It was not intentional. I did not mean to read 24 books every single month, but I read 24 books. So I did all of the statistics, and including my books for fan fiction, I read 24 books in April. So now it's a thing. Now I can read 24 books every month and that's it. I'm gonna be really sad when this breaks, but I cannot imagine forcing myself to read or stopping myself from reading if I'm past or under 24. So it's just a funny coincidence now that it's happened now 4 months in a row. But let's start with statistics, shall we? I read 24 books, including fan fiction, this month. Of those 24 books, 12 of them were physical books, 5 of them were ebooks, 2 were audiobooks, and yeah, there are fan fictions and arcs. 17 of those books were written by one female, 4 were written by one man, and the extras were written by multiple people. There were 15 white authors, 4 authors of color, and then 5 that I couldn't find any information on. I read 9,472 pages, which is the most number of pages that I read. This is crooked. And our average star rating was a 4.29, which is higher than the other months. So I've read more pages, I had a higher rating, and I read the same number of books. Those are my statistics. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about each book. So I've started packing already for our move, and all of my books are packed. So I'm gonna show you right here in this blank space. I'm going to put up the picture of the book that I'm talking about because I don't have the physical copies of any of them. So the very first book that I finished in April was the Star-Crossed Sisters of Tuscany. So that was a book of the month club book that my mother had given me to read. It was really good. It's by Lori Nelson Spellman. It was really good. My about, I said, a curse affects all second-born sisters, damning them to be unlucky in love until an estranged second sister takes her grandnieces on the adventure of a lifetime to break the curse. So it was really good. I liked the perspectives that they gave because we were in, I think, 2 different perspectives in the book. I gave it 4 stars. I had a hard time liking the characters that were supposed to get redemption arcs. I just had a hard time liking those characters. I didn't think they redeemed themselves, so that was my personal opinion. The next book that I read was actually a graphic novel manga situation. It was Avatar: The Lost Adventures. So this is based on Avatar, the show, not the movie, the show, and this is some like sketches that the creators put together for adventures that happened during the show. It was very, very cute. I gave it 4 stars. It was a very easy read. It was the one that I bought actually was a hardback, and it was the omnibus, so like it described why they did certain things and where they came up with certain concepts. It was really, really interesting. After I finished that, The Lost Adventures, I read Avatar: The Promise, which was the next book. This starts right after the series ends. So the series had 3 seasons. So this is right after the series ends, and it kind of picks up where it left off. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It was interesting. It was just kind of slow for me. Yeah, it was just kind of slow. The next book I read was The Next Day by Carrie Thorne. This was an arc, and this was my very first 5-star arc. It was so cute, and I don't usually like the oops, I'm married trope, but I liked it. I thought it was so cute. I thought it was really sweet. And the people around them I really loved as well. Like I really loved their community in the book. It was very cute. I really liked it. The next book I read was The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackworth. So this is between heaven and hell. There's a library. In the unwritten wing, all of the books that have not been finished live. So if the author is still alive, there's a chance that these books will get out of the unwritten wing. But if the author dies, those books just stay there forever. So sometimes the books get a little restless and their characters will leave the book. And then the librarian is in charge of going and collecting them before they affect anything or meet their author and try and get their author to do stuff, you know? So this book, it was very interesting. It's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like the Midnight Library, and it wasn't, but it was still really, really good. I'm excited to read the second one. It's already out. I just haven't purchased it yet, but I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. I love Christina Lauren. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought that this one was really interesting. I loved the way that they did it because it was kind of set up like a romantic mystery, romantic suspense-y kind of book. That might be wrong, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Because there's something that happened. We know that something happens, but we don't know what it is. So it starts kind of in the future and then it keeps going back. And we're switching perspectives and we're getting like the transcripts from the police report. So I thought it was really, really interesting the way that they did it. I just kind of wish there was more at the end. Like I feel like it resolved in like the last page and I'm like, okay, but what happens next? What happens after? Are they good? Are we good? Are we okay? Next I listened to Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Lucy Maud Montgomery. I listened to this and Rachel McAdams was the voice actress. She was like the narrator and she was so good. I mean, that's not surprising. Rachel McAdams is incredible and wonderful, but she was so good. I really, really enjoyed listening to it. I love Anne with an E. I watched Anne with an E and I was kind of just imagining those characters as Rachel McAdams was telling this story. So I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the show. I really liked the book. I think I would have liked the book more if I hadn't already watched and loved the show because a lot of it was the same. Like it makes me appreciate how excellent Anne with an E was based on the book. So that was nice, but I gave it 4 stars, but it was cute. Next, I read Straight from the Heart by Tracy Bannister. That was another arc and it was another 5-star. Okay, this was such a cute book. So there was a romance concierge. So she used to work as a matchmaker and then she was like, you know, I could do more than this. I could do better. And so she switches to like a romance concierge sort of situation. So people will come to her and be like, hey, I want to plan our 1-year anniversary. Can you help me? Hey, I want to plan a proposal. Can you help me? So she is a pretty successful romance concierge and she has somebody come to her and she's like, I want to plan a proposal for my boyfriend. Can you help me? She's like, for sure. So she plans this proposal. It's her 100th event and she's like, this is going to go beautifully. This is the best thing I've ever done. This is so cool. And the guy says no. And it turns out to be her ex-boyfriend who is the last person that she ever let herself love. So that throws her for a loop, and then her ex-boyfriend happens to be a publicist and he comes to her and is like, hey, we need your help. We need you to help us. We want to hire you. And so she gets thrown together with her ex-fiance. I believe it's in a fiance. And we get this other couple who's struggling, who's famous, and how the guy is trying to win her back. It was so cute and it was so well done and I loved all of the characters. And there was also like some villains that I really enjoyed, you know. It was a little intrigue, a little mystery, and it was wonderful. The next book that I read was Avatar: The Search. So this is the 3rd book in the Avatar. The second one with new material. So this one I was so excited about because they're finally going to look for Zuko's mom. And at the end of the series, I thought that this was going to be like the very next thing that they did, and it wasn't. I was really disappointed, so I was really excited to finally read this. I gave it 4 stars. It was so interesting. It was a lot, in my personal opinion, it was a lot better than The Promise, and it had a lot more action, so it seemed like there was a lot more going on. Like The Promise probably could have been a couple of episodes, maybe even 1 episode, and The Search could have been a whole season. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And next we have The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. So this I gave 4.5 stars. This one is about Tiffany and Leon sharing an apartment without ever meeting. So Leon works nights and Tiffany works days, and she and her boyfriend break up. She moves out and she needs somewhere to stay, so she ends up staying at Leon's apartment during the day. So they have their times that they're allowed to be there, their times that they're not allowed to be there, and it works for almost a year, them never meeting but living in the same apartment, sleeping in the same bed. So it was really cute. It was pretty, in my opinion, the reason it wasn't 5 stars is because it was pretty slow at times, especially in the beginning. I just feel like, and they wanted to give us a good foundation, which was nice and was important, but it was just a little too much of a foundation. I could have gone for probably a couple of chapters less than we had. The next book I read was The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray. So these 5 books, the 2 that I just talked about, this one and the next 2, are all books that I read in one weekend, and I will link the weekend reading vlog below if you want to look at that. I basically just say the exact same thing. I'm trying to not give spoilers in my videos, unless I specifically am like, these will contain spoilers, so I don't have as much to say because I'm trying not to spoil. But The Right Swipe is about a dating app specifically geared towards women. It was really, really cute. I gave it 5 stars. I really loved how they conveyed like modern dating, and also I think they did a really great job on touching on grief and issues that women in power will face sometimes. So I thought it was really, really good. I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read the graphic novel Fangirl. So Fangirl is a book by Rainbow Revell. And Sam Maggs went and made it into a 4-part graphic novel. So I read the first part of graphic novel. It was so cute. My mom and sister say that we've already read Fangirl, but I don't remember this plot at all. But it ended on a cliffhanger, which was really frustrating, and I still haven't read the next one. But it was really, really cute. I've been getting a little bit more into graphic novels lately. They're really quick reads, but you can convey so much more looking at a person's face. I feel like graphic novels are the golden child of books and TV shows, you know? So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I read this book specifically because Carrie Hope Fletcher said that she was going to read it, and I was like, yeah, I also like Carrie Hope Fletcher and anything that she would like. So I bought it and I read it, and it was so good. It's by Stuart Turton. It's 5 stars. It was so good. It was so interesting and intricate, and even when I was exhausted and all I wanted to do was sleep, I still couldn't convince myself to put it down. I was like, oh, I'll just read one more chapter though. I'll just read one more chapter. I never ended up taking a nap the day that I was supposed to read this, even though I kept saying I was going to take a nap, because I would lay down and then I'd be like, I wonder what's going to happen next. It was so interesting. Like the time, like the parallel universe plight that they had to talk about. Oh my gosh, it was so interesting, and it blows my mind that people can think of stuff like that, you know? Crazy. The next thing I read was fan fiction. I read a Lumos fan fiction. I had heard about it on TikTok, so I went over and read it. It currently has 42 chapters. When I read it, it had 40, and I've just been like reading it as it comes out. It's really good. It's Harry Potter fanfic where Hermione and George get together, and they end up getting married and stuff, and it starts with Hermione waking up in the hospital 5 years after the war, but not remembering the last 5 years of her life. So she doesn't remember falling out of love with Ron and falling into love with George. Like, so, but it goes back and forth. So it's Hermione's perspective 5 years in the future and George's perspective, like, right after the war happened. It's really, really good. I really, really like it. Fred didn't die, which was wonderful. It's not finished, which breaks my heart. Currently it has about 1,500 pages based on the word count. And once I read that, I gave it 4 stars. And once I read that, obviously I had to go back and read all 4 books of Dead of Time again, my favorite fanfic in the history of all fanfics. I haven't read very many fanfics, but I don't think I'm ever gonna love one as much as I love Dead of Time. It's just, it's so, it's like baffling how well written this is. I think it's more impressive, maybe not more impressive, but equally, if not more, impressive than The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, because The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is a world that Stuart Turton created himself, so he could make sure that everything lined up. But with this fanfic, it goes in the past and then it goes into the future, and it's just to make sure everything lines up, you know? Like, she tells the same scene, like you could read a scene side by side from the Harry Potter books and then from this fanfic, and they would say the same thing. The dialogue would be the same. It takes on a whole new meaning because of this. So Dead of Time is really good. If you ever want to read a fanfic ever, you should read Dead of Time. There are 4 books. It follows Hermione for the first year after the war, and then it follows, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm like, and then it follows Maya, who is a Marauder era character, as she goes through Hogwarts, after Hogwarts, and then it goes back to after the war, after the Second Wizarding World War. So it's very, very good. It's like 2,000 pages. It's 4 books though, so it's long, but it's so, so good. I read the 4th book probably once every 2 weeks. It's my favorite book. I'm obsessed with it. It's so, so good. After The Dead of Time, I read The Score by L. Kennedy. Every single time I read a book by L. Kennedy, I'm like, I've read one of these, but I still don't know which one. It might have been this one. I feel like it's not though. I don't know. But these characters are familiar to me. I know I've read one of them. I just can't figure out which one I've read. Maybe I've read all of them and I just don't remember. I gave it 4 stars. It's a little too graphic for me, personally. Like, I like some action as much as the next person, but this was, I think this one was just a little too much for me, personally. But 4 stars. The Score by L. Kennedy. Great book. The next book that I read was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This was a Once Upon a Book Club box book, but I actually had bought it beforehand because I had heard of it and it sounded interesting, so I bought it, and then I hadn't read it, and then my mom told me the book for Once Upon a Book Club, and I was like, I have that book, I just haven't read it yet. So I loved it. I thought it was so interesting. I liked the way that we went back and forth, not only with the perspectives, but also with like the years. I thought it was so cool. I thought the tie-in was really interesting. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I thought it was so, so good. 5 stars, Lost Apothecary, Sarah Penner. I will link that video also in the description below. Next I read If It's Perfect by Summer Dowell. This was okay. I didn't like the main character. I liked all the other characters. I just did not like my main character, which is crazy because she is like a cake decorator with a life plan, like with everything planned down to the minute, to the hour, whatever. And I am a planner. I feel like I relate to her personality. I just did not like her at all. I wasn't a fan of her as a person, so I had a hard time getting behind her since this whole book obviously was about her. So I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Next I read Simple Minded by Lisa Daly. This was another one and I didn't love. This was an arc that I was given, so I was kind of like just willing the book to end. It was another one that I really didn't like the main character. I gave it 3 stars. Honestly, it might be 2. I really didn't want to finish it, but it was an arc, so I finished it. The next book that I listened to was Anne of Avonlea by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I gave this book 3.5 stars. There just really wasn't very much material. Like, I listened to it and it was like a 3-hour audiobook, which is ridiculously short. And I just, it very much seemed like something that Lucy Maud Montgomery picked out because people were like, we want more Anne. And she was like, here are some stories about her, I guess. And I appreciated it. I loved Anne. I loved listening to it. I'm excited to read the rest of them, even though I know that they're all going to kind of be novellas. But it was cute. I love Anne. I'm happy that I got to know more about Anne. The last book I read this month was Shadow and Bone by Leah Bardugo. So I read this book for a video that is coming out next Wednesday, where I read the book and then I watched all of the series and I contrasted the two. I really liked this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought it was beautifully written. I thought it had the best descriptions. I had such an easy time envisioning the characters and the area because of how well it was written and how detailed the descriptions were. And I feel like she also, Leah Bardugo, just made the characters extremely human. Like, Elena was such a wonderfully relatable character where you could see her flaws and she could see her flaws, but she was just like kind and funny and like loyal to a fault, but also a little self-deprecating and jealous. And you know, she was such a great character. Every time she said something, I was like, that's me, I'm her. But yeah, so that was the very last book I read. I really loved it. I cannot wait to watch the TV show. I'm a little concerned because people are talking about characters that I do not know, so I'm a little worried that I'm gonna be like, I don't know these characters. I should have read more than just the first book. So I guess we will see about that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Those are the 24 books that I read this month. I am happy with my reading. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.